those numbers actually publish articles per year. Which one do you think it is? 1.8 million. Okay, 1.8 million is the number of articles that's published per year. What about the rest? 200 a year, 500,000 plus?
200 years.
200?
Maybe go cited.
Cited? No, we've got 1.8 a year of papers. I think the citations should be more or less in the millions, right? So it shouldn't be in the hundreds. 50,000? No, that's not quite as well. Because if you think about it, right, if you have millions of papers published, then you will expect millions of citations. I mean, the order of magnitude should be about the same, right? So what about 200? That seems to be a little small. 50,000 seems a little small as well, right? Compared to 1.8 million. Any idea? Who still wants to guess? Let me spend some time next door. Okay. Any idea? 50,000 a year. 50,000, but that's not a year. This 200 is a year, 50,000.
We are sharing that.
Papers is 1.8 million.
We come back here.
No, not really high impact factor. But anyway, thank you very much for your participation. Let me review the answers before you guys get too bored. 200 a year is the papers that are being read per researcher per year. Roughly. How many of you all read 200 papers a year? You all don't count? How many papers do you think you read per year? 1,000? Really? So many? Okay, if you read less than 200, right, then maybe you should read a little more. If you read more than 200, then I am a bit worried for you. I don't know what you are doing with your time, because if you read thousands, then you don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, you see. So, more or less it's about a few hundred that you read a year. Okay, the 50,000 is the 50,000 class of journals that are available out in the market today, and 1.8 million, I mentioned, is the number of articles published. Now, why am I showing these numbers? Just to let you all know that there are a lot of papers that is being published, but the amount that you can read is actually very small, right? Very small. So what can we do with that? So, the idea here is that we are drowned by a lot of information. We are talking about millions and millions of patents, conference papers, and we are talking about 50,000 journals and millions of articles every year. So what can we do? Too much. Who thinks they can read everything? You can read everything? No, you can read everything, right? So what can we do here? So we have to be selective about what we read. It is not because I like it, it's not because I want to select, it's because it's a must. If you don't, there is no way you can finish everything. Okay? But the good thing here is that according to Bradford's law, some of you all might have heard of this, a relatively small number of journals will publish almost all of the important results. So the idea here is that we only need to capture a small number of journals. Then that will be that will be sufficient for us to capture almost the whole of the research landscape. So selectivity is the key here. Okay, we cannot read everything. We don't have the time, nor do we have the energy. So content selection is a must. So over at Thomson Reuters, what we do is we get this what we call a sea of scholarly information, tons of stuff, and then we apply some of our very stringent filtering criteria. And we will be left with just a handful of what we call the core of science. We call it the Web of Science core collection. So the core collection really is what has gone through our very rigorous filtering procedures. And every year, we get many journals that apply to be put into the core of science. We get about thousands, and 3,000 over every year, but because we are very stringent, we only accept about 10 to 12% of them every year. And on top of that, once they are accepted, it's not guaranteed that they will be in. I will show you some examples later on that we actually have continuous monitoring of this content, and if some of these journals, their standards fall or their standards drop, we will not hesitate to take them out of the core collection. So that's important for you guys, because you guys would know that we at Thomson Reuters, we take care of you. We know that you don't want to read garbage. We know that you don't want to waste your time filtering stuff. We will do all this filtering for you, and we ensure that the quality of the journals in our core collection is always good. Okay, so the core collection is actually a very wide collection of more than 12,000 journals. We have more than 100,000 conferences and more than 50,000 books. So remember, I mentioned just now that how many journals do we have in the market today? Who still remembers? 50 over 1,000, right? So we actually do a lot of filtering, and within our core collection, we have about 12,000. Okay? And out of this, we have 59 million articles, or we call them source items. And the references that we have is a billion. So we are one of the largest citation network at Thomson Reuters. So the question now, do we claim that all these big numbers means that we own everything? Do we have everything? Even though these numbers are very big, these are huge numbers, right? Do we claim to have everything? Who thinks that we claim to have everything? Nobody? Then we don't have anything? No, we don't. We do not claim to have everything, okay? Very good. But what we do claim is that after this filtering process, we will be able to deliver to you the important things that you should read, okay? And that is what we stand for. We do the filtering for you, and the important stuff is in the core collection. Now, just a little bit more about what Web of Science stands for. We started out in the 1950s. I think none of us were born, right? Should be, right? All of you all look very young here. I don't think anybody remember the 1950s. So our founder, which is Dr. Eugene Garfield, he started this idea of a citation index. So since then, we have grown into Web of Science, and all of the top universities use Web of Science. I mean, you guys also use Web of Science, right? So you know that you are doing the good stuff. And we are considered to be a gold standard when it comes to scientific databases. So we used to be called the ISI. I think the name ISI still sticks. Some of our customers still remember us as ISI. But officially speaking, we are now Thomson Reuters. So ISI was actually bought over by Thomson Scientific in the 90s. And in 2009 or 2008, around there, Thomson bought over Reuters. And now we are combined together with Thomson Reuters. So we have been around for a long time. So all this time, we have been doing this. So we are very good at this. So just now I mentioned about citation indexes. Now, just to give you a rough idea of what citation analysis is all about. So if you have a paper in 2010, now this paper has cited some of the older papers. Okay, and the newer papers will have cite some of the 2010 papers. So what does citation analysis do is that by looking at other papers that share the same citation, we know that these papers are talking about the same subject. So using citation analysis, we can capture things that are related to each other, even though they are not obvious at first. Okay, so this concept was revolutionary back in the 1950s. I think for now, you all might think that it's not much, but back then, it was a very brilliant idea. So some of you all might protest. They say, hey, Seng, you know, now we got search engine, right? We just search what we want, right? What seems to be the problem? Now, one of the issues is that terms in the scientific world keep evolving. Okay, so this example here, talking about HIV. Who knows HIV? The disease, the virus. AIDS. Yeah, exactly. So, if you search for HIV in, let's say, Google Scholar or whatever it is, you will be able to get many papers that are in the 80s. Okay, because the term HIV was used from the 80s onwards. Now, previously, terms such as LAV or different areas like Europe, the Europeans will use LAV, the Americans will use HDLV3, HDLV2. If you do just a word search, unfortunately, you are going to miss all this. Okay, so using word search is very useful, but ultimately, when scientific terms changes with time, you will not be able to capture them. So using citation analysis, right, you will be able to know that, oh, you know, these guys have been cited so many times, they are somewhat related. Okay, so please know that citation analysis is a very powerful tool that you can use in your own searches. Okay, so let's go to the Web of Science proper. So this is the Web of Science interface. So we have very powerful search capabilities, some of you guys already know. And on top of that, okay, what differentiates us from our other competitors? Who uses Google Scholar here? When I go to classes, many people use Google Scholar. Google Scholar, very good. Google Scholar is very good. Actually, I use it myself. Okay, because it's a very natural way to search for stuff in the browser, right? But Google Scholar does not allow you to do tutoring like this. So this is one of the things that Web of Science is very proud of. We are able to differentiate the subject, the subject and the topics of each of these articles, which other databases is unable to. And then we can also sort them according to what we want. I will show you all of these later. So just to give you an idea, we can analyze a lot of things. You know, whether they are open access or not, who funded them, and all of these things can be found in our Web of Science core collection. So we can search for stuff, but of course, everybody also can search for stuff. So that is not exactly a big deal. So we have powerful searching capabilities. On top of that, we can also answer a lot of all these questions. Okay, how many papers did UTM publish in the past 10 years and stuff like that. So citation reports. Who are familiar with citation reports? Have anybody used citation reports before? Okay, good. I will show you how this is done and how it can be useful to you later on. And then personal profile. Now, this is interesting. Who has a personal profile with Web of Science? Nobody. Oh, very supporter. Good support. That one is my star supporter there. Everything also he has. Yeah. So when you have a personal profile, what happens is that you can save your preferences, and a lot of the things can be saved on the cloud. So that next time when you perform certain searches, you will be able to see your history and stuff like that. So this is very useful. So later I can show you some of this. Citation mapping. This one is a visualization. I think for this diagram, there's nothing much that I can tell you about, but just to let you all have the idea that you can actually see what papers cite what other papers in a very nice schematic. I can show you some of this live later on.